Our final speaker of the day is Alyssa Ravasio. She's the founder and CEO of Hipcamp, which is an online platform that partners with private landowners to unlock access to new places for people to camp and recreate in the great outdoors, sort of like Airbnb for grass, maybe.
So much more.
They offer camping and glamping at over 3,000 sites nationwide, with hundreds more being added every month. She's got a degree from UCLA in digital democracy. Take it away.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I hear you all get ice cream after I'm done, so I promise to be as brief as possible. I would like to start by recognizing and thanking the Nako Chunk tribe. I believe we're on their traditional homeland, so thank you for having us here today. My talk today is called The Middle Space. I bet a lot of you are wondering what the heck is the middle space. It's a term I created to explain this weird thing I have noticed keeps happening in the process of creating my company, Hipcamp, and I want to share today a bit about my learnings there, the opportunities I see there, and essentially think of the middle space as kind of this spectrum. There's something weird our brains do, I don't know why, where we just love to polarize things. We love to put them in boxes, black and white, red and blue. And what I've been learning is that actually the truth is that's rarely the truth. And there's this huge spectrum in between these opposites. And often these opposites really need each other and work in interesting ways together. So that is the theme of my talk. Obligatory embarrassing childhood photo. I grew up camping and just loving the outdoors. That's a blue-belly lizard, native to Northern California. And thank you to all of you who manage public lands, because this was my home, this was my school, this is where I spent time growing up, and it just is a huge part of who I am and what I care about. I also love the internet. This is another thing I really care about and really love. At UCLA, I actually created a major called digital democracy because I was so obsessed with this tool called the internet. And I really feel strongly that this is the most powerful tool humans have ever created. And I know that tools are neutral in general. And so its impact is going to depend on who learns to use it and what they use it for. And so that was what I studied at university. After that, I actually came right down the street and worked at the State Department for a bit on the Internet Freedom Task Force before returning back home to California to do what I love to do, which is build things with the internet. And that's what Hipcamp is. It's something I built with the internet. Great intro. I won't repeat too much, but essentially we partner with private landowners, unlocking access to new places for people to get outside. Either we're finding these landowners, increasingly they're finding us, which is great. We provide liability insurance, we send them a photographer, we do all the marketing. We have a community of over 3 million campers that's growing quickly. We have huge social media following, so we're basically able to send them, the right type of people who are going to enjoy their land. And the ultimate impact of that is they get these people who own land and are taking great care of it, earn some extra revenue, while people who need access to nature are also receiving that. So this is not one of the official middle spaces I will be discussing today, but I had to throw this in here. There's a huge space between traditional bring your tent backpacking and hotels, and that's really the space in which we're operating. We do a lot of tree houses and tent cabins, or bring your own tent, but there's a kitchen set up for you. So really, when I say camping, it's a very inclusive, broad definition. Nature and technology. So we've already had a bunch of great talks today that I think prove my point here, which is that these are not opposing forces. So often we hear, we've got to get kids off the screens, we've got to get them outside, and I really believe that. I really do, but I think that there's a lot that we can do with technology to connect people with nature. So this is Andrew Malera State Park. It's a campground that I found after many, many hours of research. I was looking for a campsite to spend New Year's Eve on. In 2012, I'd had a really hard year, so I really wanted to just go to the ocean for New Year's, and it was a really frustrating experience for me as a camper, because my state parks and my national parks and my county parks and my national forests each had their own website. None of them were integrated, and so as a camper, I was left with 40 different tabs open in my internet browser, trying to figure out where I might be able to go. Eventually settled on this amazing campground, read the entire website, and even downloaded the brochure that was on the website, really did my homework. But upon arriving, discovered that there was an incredible surf break. And I had not brought my surfboard. I love to surf. I'd actually taken it out of my car before driving down to make room for my tall friend. And so I spent New Year's morning sitting at the beach saying, I tried so hard. I spent so much time and still didn't really have, the perfect camping experience, what I wanted it to be. And it was driving home that day that I thought, we could use technology, we could use the internet to improve this experience. And that's how Hipcamp started. So the original idea was just very simple. I wanted all the existing campgrounds, all the public campgrounds on one map so I could see which ones were on the beach. It didn't look like this when we started it. It looked like that. And, the whole idea here is let's use technology for good. Let's use technology to connect people with nature and recognize that's a huge tool we can use to our advantage. So a big middle space there between no technology or all technology. We can actually use technology to get people into nature. The second one is a very controversial topic in DC right now and in the West, out where I live. This is the difference in the space between public and private land. So something really interesting started happening in the first year or two with Hipcamp. We had all these public campgrounds. People were leaving reviews and photos, and really it was a great tool. We were getting great feedback, except people kept saying everything's booked. Your site's great, but I still can't find anywhere to go camping this weekend because everything's already booked up. So, we're obsessed with this problem of making camping easier. So we were, going down through the list of solutions, and I actually went to Sacramento and gave state parks this big presentation on building more campgrounds, and the answer I got was we're actually shutting them down right now, which was crazy to me. But they were having budget cuts, and so they were actually closing campgrounds and parks down. So we got this kind of wild idea to start working with private landowners and just build our own campsites and see if that might present a good solution to the problem. And it seemed really scary at the time because in my mind, public land was this, beautiful, pristine land, which it is. But the other half of my mind was saying that private land must be this devastated wasteland. Who would want to go there? And that was just a story a lot of us at our company had. We really had to struggle with this idea of would people even want to go to private land? And then we found our first host. So this is Clear Creek Ranch. It's a 600-acre property in Northern California, won in a dice game in about 1890. True story. And upon meeting this landowner and seeing his property, I realized that my brain was told a totally wrong story. And in fact, somewhere between cities that are paved and beautiful, pristine wilderness areas, there's a lot of land in the middle there. And a lot of it's privately owned. And so that's what we started doing. We started finding these landowners who, for one reason or another, own lots of land but have chosen to not develop it and not sell it and not turn it into a housing development, but are really passionate about preserving the nature and the ecosystem on their land. And we started working with them to send campers out on their property. These people are my heroes. So just to give them their own time. These are just a selection of some of our hosts. We have Robert here on our left. I think he's turning 90 this summer. And he bought his land from his parents when he was 17 because he loves the river and loves the owls that live there and couldn't bear to think that it would ever become anything other than exactly as it was. In the middle, you have Gabby. She runs a nonprofit that provides habitat for gibbon monkeys, which are an endangered species. She's hosting campers. You have Juco and Jerry. They own a big piece of land adjacent to a state park in Santa Cruz and a ton of redwoods on it, and they bought it because they did not want people coming in and building big mansions where they knew these redwoods should be. I can't stop. I'll just go through quickly. This is Peter. In addition to just being an epic photo, he owns a bunch of riverfront, and his property is called Otter Space because his whole intention is to create a safe space for otters to come, as well as people. This is Myrna. This is where the middle space got really confusing, and I just saw so clearly this was a spectrum. She's actually technically on public land owned by the city of Vallejo. The city of Vallejo had no funding to create a park, so she, with a team of volunteers and Hipcamp, has created a public park with zero public funding. This is Jennifer. This is a Navajo home site right outside Monument Valley. Not public land, not really private land, somewhere in between. And again, an incredible place, an incredible story, an incredible mission, and a place people can visit. So the middle space there between public and private is where we're exploring, and there's a lot of learnings there. And I think, as I know a lot of you are with public agencies, I think these private landowners who care about their land, they're your partners. They're upriver from you, they're downriver from you, they're part of, you all know, but the animals don't know the difference between who owns the land. So recreation and conservation, this one was really weird for me because starting Hipcamp, I never thought there was any tension here at all. Didn't occur to me. About a year in, I was like, what is going on here? I was hearing things like, well, these are obviously competing use cases. There's an obvious tension here. And I was like, what are we talking about? I just don't understand. And with state parks, when we first, put the public agencies up, I knew that by getting more young people into parks, I was helping to create a supporter base, and hopefully that supporter base would help advocate for better budgets with the governor. I don't know. I just knew there was something happening there. But with private land, the feedback loop got much tighter very quickly. So this is a letter that a rancher gave me, and it's from a land development group. I don't know if you can read it, but it says, basically, your land has been identified as extremely valuable. We'd like to build either a hotel or a series of homes on it, and you could be, a multimillionaire. She gave me this letter because she says she gets these all the time and she hates them. She's actively working to restore her watershed, bring the salmon back, replanting native species. And these letters are just heart-wrenchers for her because sometimes she feels like she might need to call. She doesn't know how to pay her mortgage the next month. But this represents everything she doesn't want to do with her land. And she gave us this letter. It's now framed in our office because she says, because of Hipcamp, this letter is junk mail to me. I know I'm going to make the revenue. I know I can make that payment. And so I saw so quickly, like, recreation and conservation, sometimes viewed as these enemies fighting for the same piece of land. Actually, getting people recreating is providing direct funding for her to conserve this ecosystem. And this is a campsite on her land. So this is the newest one, and we're still learning a lot about it. But essentially, Hipcamp takes amazing people like Richard, who live in upstate New York and always have, famously has never gone to a city. And people like this, who are from the city and are young and have their iPhones. And we just do this 1,000 times every weekend right now. And it's fascinating because, we didn't intend to do this. That wasn't our intention at all. But coming out of all these experiences people are having, we're hearing really powerful learnings that are being shared. So I wanted to read a couple quotes from our hosts here. So this is from a landowner in Texas. He says, some of my campers I would never talk to if I met them as strangers on the street. But the beauty of Hipcamp is that it gives you a common ground, the love of camping and nature. My background is military, very regimented and formal, but I live outside Austin, a city known for its hippie roots and progressive nature. My campers enjoy the land just as much as I do, and that is what joins us, and that is what matters. This one's from a farmer in Wisconsin. It's fun to expose our farm to new folks, and our 3- and 6-year-old really benefit too. Living in the country, you kind of get set in a bubble as we're on a farm a lot, working. Hipcamp exposes different types of folks to our kids and vice versa. Our children love when the other kids come. It gives them a sense of pride to show off what we have here. And then final one, This is from a landowner in California. Hipcamp has the power to break the echo chamber of partisan networking that surrounds us right now. It provides a window between urbanites and country folk. Over this last year, I've watched my dad host the most colorful spectrum of people from everywhere, in all caps. Most all, young, urban, adventurous people that have been most respectful of the land. He has been surprised by the quality of their characters. I think it's changed him for the better. Tolerance of others' lifestyles is now approaching acceptance. It's a character. So we started reading these, kind of just coming in through our reviews. I read through our reviews, and I think it's really made me think about, nature and what a powerful foundation it gives people who maybe agree on almost nothing else to start with a set of shared values that are often among the most important in their lives. I had to throw in one shout out here to recreation.gov. When we talk about Hipcamp's future, this is something I'm really excited about. I want to commend all the amazing work that's been done by the recreation.gov team. Recreation.gov in the future is going to have a more open, accessible platform, and Hipcamp will be able to even more prominently feature public land on its site. When we talk about the future, I'm also really excited about this concept of half Earth. This is a theory by famed biologist E.O. Wilson. Who's familiar with E.O. Wilson here? Yay. Okay, some people. You should read his work. It's amazing. He's created a lot of theories, many which have been proven correct in his lifetime. This is his newest theory, and it's that we have to protect 50% of Earth's land and 50% of Earth's water if we do not want to have mass extinction, the early tremors of which we're already experiencing today. I think we can get here. I really do. And I think we can get here because we have technology, and we can use technology to connect people with nature. And we can use, creative, private, public collaboration to get there. And, we can use the idea of rural and urban people really coming together. And if we keep building on those shared values of what we already agree on, I think we can go a long way. Because this is the least controversial thing in the world. And that is so powerful. I am yet to meet one person who does not want a child to have fun in nature, does not want future generations to have enough resources to thrive, enough rivers to play in. Nobody disagrees with that. And I think that provides all of us in this room such a powerful foundation upon which we can all continue to do great work. And thank you for all of the great work you already do in this space. And let's have some ice cream. Thank you.